Is social media the new search engine? Hi, welcome to the Stratazine podcast, where we dive deep into social media each and every week. I'm joined today by David Pruitt, who is the digital director of Sandhill Media. David, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So our topic that we're kind of diving into today is SEO and social media as a search engine. But to kind of preface that, I want to get your take on this on just first SEO, search engine optimization. What role does SEO play for a brand or for a business?
SEO plays kind of a lot of vital roles. Some of the easy things that SEO does for you guys. It helps you get to the top page of Google if you have good page and domain authority. It helps you drive organic traffic to your websites. If you're something that can be discovered online, you usually have some level of trust. So for your brand, if you aren't findable online, what's the likelihood people trust your brand at the end of the day? It can help you with long-term strategies, that kind of stuff, because if you do the SEO and you do it right to begin with, you can eventually have even a better experience for long-term, ratings on Google or even any other search engine for that matter.
I think that's a great insight of really focusing on building trust with your brand or your business or your company, but also really focus on finding them in the first place. Because if no one can really find your brand or your business, it's like, that's makes it really hard for them engage and to drive what you need to drive. This quote, it comes from a Forbes article. It says, Gen X and millennials have made Google a verb, but Instagram and TikTok are now the preferred search engines for Gen Z when seeking local results. According to a new study, 1,002 US customers, Google is now in third place for 18 to 24-year-olds. I think that brings up, a really interesting point of now search engines are getting less away from Google and the Bings of the world and more on social media. In your opinion, why do you think social media works as a search engine?
So I know I've done a couple searches on social media from time to time when I'm looking at the business. It's usually for a trust variable. If you can see that they're engaging with the audience, at least in a somewhat weekly business, kind of activity, or even if they have anything that suggests that they're a legit business, definitely fits right into that trust variable. But if you go onto social media, you can't find anything about them, or they have like one follower, and you're just kind of sitting there going like, is this real? Or am I just being, finding some Indian company out there in the middle of nowhere that's trying to, get me on something? I'm shocked that you say 18 to 24-year-olds specifically doing that. Did I understand that right? First priority?
Correct, yeah.
For search engine? That's pretty amazing to me. I'm a millennial. I'm 33 years old. It's not that I wouldn't check it out there, but that probably wouldn't be my first choice. It really just kind of goes to show there's a generational difference. And I wonder what factors that brings into it. But I would suppose the reason why is because they're familiar with it, because they spend most of the time on it. If I'm not mistaken, I think I read an article the other day that said that people spend about 2.5 hours a day on social media. It's something wildly large like that. Now I grant most people are going to be like, no, that's not true. I'm like, well, let's prove it for a second. Pick my poison, if that makes any sense, is I like YouTube and I like, Facebook, and I like, those sorts of things. And that would be considered social media, even though a lot of people don't think YouTube is social media. It totally is. TikTok and Instagram and that kind of stuff, that's becoming much popular with the younger generation. From my generation is how I feel about it. So it probably just makes sense that they do more searching there because they spend more time there. Whereas a Google search probably takes place within 5 minutes of my day. Probably don't spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a great point of that generational difference. In the same article, it talks about the people that use actually Google the most are from like 50 to 65-year-olds is the age range that's their top search engine. And I think it brings up this point. You bring up that great point of, where are you spending most of your time? And I think in today's day and age, the youth are spending most of their time on social media. I think my generation and the generation afterwards, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, it's like was the generations not only to grow up on smartphones, but grow up on the internet. And if you look at, where they're spending most of their time with influencers and content creators, most of the time that's what they're searching for to discover. is they're like, hey, where can I find entertaining videos, or where can I find this thing that I heard about from someone else, and that word of mouth. And so I think social media as a search engine makes a lot more sense, as you brought up, because everyone, that's where most we spend our time all day, or sometimes we waste a lot of time all day. I think I definitely fall into that category of using social media at least 2.5 hours. But I think to add on to that question, what do you think are the benefits of social media as a search engine? You talked about being able to find a business to kind of be like, okay, I can trust them or they're around. But what do you think are some of those benefits of using it as a search engine?
Yeah, well, the benefits of a search engine, at least through social media. I mean, if people are following your page, that kind of stuff, you can always hit up your followers with organic posting. You'll probably reach about 10% of them with every post you have. That's kind of what we suggest to our clients. When it comes down to doing paid ads, it's a lot easier to hit your followers than it is to find just a random ethereal audience out there anywhere in the universe. But when they're doing any sort of search engine on social media, I would assume that they're probably looking for something that you're a part of. I would suppose that groups are a pretty big deal for, at least for Facebook in that case, because like, for example, I like Dungeons and Dragons and that kind of stuff. One of my favorite things is to see news from Dungeons and Dragons. And if I see that, they reposted something from another group that would be something related, then bam, they get me on that one as well. So there's a lot of little effective, marketing things you can do for free on there that can just really, bring home. There's a lot of benefits for you to work in the social media field and getting your brand name out there to really just basically improve your overall brand awareness.
Yeah, no, I think that is a great point. And this quote, it comes from LinkedIn, talking about social media and search engines. It says social media platforms use sophisticated algorithms to curate content based on your interests and interactions. This means that the results you see are more likely to be relevant and useful to you, making them a more valuable source of information. And kind of like with that example you brought up with D&D in groups, of being able to find the things that are most relevant to you. I think that is something that is so powerful as social media, as a search engine, is being able to niche your audience down and to curate exactly what you want to get. I think gone are the days where all of us can relate to, gone are the days where we all see the same things in our feed. Most of the time, our feeds are completely different from one another unless we're overlapping interests. But I think being able to focus and dive down to see, oh, I can find exactly what is relevant to me or exactly what I'm looking for, I think really influences our decisions and influences the things that we're able to not only purchase online, but also to connect with a brand. This quote, it comes from this article by TinUp, also talking about social media as a search engine. Says social media search bars are the new way to find new products, brands, and influencers. 75.78% of consumers have used social media to search and discover new brands online, and 68.75% of consumers have been influenced to purchase something they say they saw on social media. To you as a marketer, how does SEO and social media influence your customer spending habits?
So I can even do you one better than that after this question if you want.
Go for it.
But there's SEO can do to help your social media influence your customers and your spending habits and what they're discovering and that kind of stuff. I'm not surprised that people do that. I'm sure you've seen ads where, just a person within a picture and they're like looking at another person reviewing a product or something like that. And that is just as good as any testimonial you find on a website or even from Google reviews. It was something I remember one of my mentors telling me that it's like, David, it doesn't really matter what the product is. If it has a lot of good reviews, most people are going to assume that's probably a good product. And social media is a lot of, if you want to put it, popularism. If there's popularism taking place, you're definitely going to see a lot of opportunity to make lots of sales if that's what you are as a retail business or even software. It doesn't really matter. But if you have popularism behind whatever it is that you're doing as a company, you're going to have to make sure that your brand is right on there, focusing in on who you're trying to target. I'll give you one better if you'd like on that answer too.
Yeah, no, please. Right? Please go for it.
Good. I'm directly related with a project I'm working with my boss. His name is Matt Bergoni, on something called Things You'll Love. One of our DJs here, his name is Brad Barlow. He's going to be doing not a podcast, don't get me wrong, but it's product reviews, but with a personality. I love, because I work at a radio station, right, at a media group. We have radio stations that take place here. We have what I call the original, the OGs of, what is it, social media influencers, if that makes any sense. So we're making a whole project called Things You'll Love, and it's just Brad basically having in the background someone reviewing some Amazon product using a UTM code that allows them to track, this sale came from this place. And Brad is basically sending people from all these different platforms and mediums to basically bring in their marketing campaign. We assume going to be a really big idea because we can group and compound a whole bunch of different areas all together in one. Just basically off of one video from a somewhat famous person to begin with. We're hoping to see good results as we launch this Wednesday. So it should be fun.
No, that is, I think, a great example of using this principle in action, and I think a great example of what your company is doing to use SEO in social media, to especially not only for your clients but also for your personal brands as well. This quote also comes from the same Footworks article. It says, "A seismic shift is reshaping how consumers find local businesses. The old guard of search engines is being challenged as younger shoppers turn to Instagram and TikTok for search and discovery. For businesses, a robust presence on these platforms isn't just beneficial, it's critical to winning market share with younger customers." Moving forward in the future, as you know, the younger generation gets older and they rely on social media for search engines, what do you feel like are the best practices to help implement SEO in social media search engines?
Best practices to implement SEO. Number one, make sure your name is there. Number two, make sure that you have your description. If you're like an Instagram, I think it's in your bio. Make sure it's relevant to what you're selling, doing, product-based, reviewing, whatever it may be. For Facebook and that kind of stuff, important things to do, make sure you have somewhat of a level of a new post to be good for you, because every post basically will be on the internet somewhere. And that just basically improves your overall links that you're going to have that bring people back to your website. Or if you will, even back to your Facebook page or to your Instagram page or your TikTok page. It don't matter what. But every one of them you have basically will help you increase your page authority within your domain authority. So domain authority being like Facebook.com, and page authority being more like, Facebook.com/ like, for example, I'm a board game owner, right? Like I own the board game convention, Icon Board Game Convention. If I make posts on a daily content basis, people are likely to find online because it will increase the page authority of the website I'm doing. So, engaging them with, making sure we have something to engage them with is important. I think me and my co-worker here, we always try to make sure we have a 4 to 1 ratio where it's 4 times something to engage them with, and the fifth one's like, hey, you should convert, you should do something about it. And it all comes right back down to that sales funnel. We find that social media really great for awareness and that kind of stuff. It can be good for conversions, but there's some weaknesses in it. It's the same thing that I truly believe about it. That when people are looking for a plumber, I'd be surprised on this. I mean, I'm going to look it up now that you've said it. But when people are looking for a plumber, I bet my first reaction is maybe I go to my phone and I say, plumber near me, or plumber Idaho Falls, where I'm from, or something like that. And that's going to help me basically determine who should I call because I have an emergency. What can I do about it? So I think somewhat depends on your business, but if it's a product, something like a Stanley mug, which was really popular about a year ago, it's probably just going to come down to who's your influencer on such a thing that you're going to be following, because we're all sheep and we follow along with the rules, aren't we?
No, I think that is a great example. And to all you listeners out there, I hope you're listening closely, because I feel like that is great advice of what you can do to increase SEO and social media. But that's kind of all the time that we have for today. David, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and sharing your expertise and knowledge with us.
Thanks for having me, Nate. It was fun.
Thanks. For all you listeners out there, please make sure to go follow our page on Stratazine on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.